Hello, everyone. I am thrilled to have Brendan Julian, former Australian all-rounder, with us on this chat. Great to have you with us, Brendan.
Dan, it's great to be here, mate. Good to talk to you.
Brendan, tell us something about your early years. You were born in New Zealand, and then you moved to Australia. What was that move like, and how difficult or easy was it for you?
Well, look, I was born in 1970, so I left New Zealand in 1976. My dad basically moved to Western Australia up in the north in the Pilbara, and the Pilbara region is an area in the far north of Perth, 2 hours by plane, which is now famous for iron ore and mineral production. My dad was a train driver, so I moved over when I was 6 to Port Hedland and started learning cricket at primary school, and basically never left. I went back to New Zealand for a brief stint in 1981 to 1985. I started playing a bit of cricket in New Zealand for Northern Districts then. I went to the same school as Kane Williamson, even though he was obviously younger. But we went to the same school in Tauranga in New Zealand. Then 1985, I went back to Perth, went to boarding school in Perth, and then stayed there ever since and started, playing cricket there at school and then representing Western Australia.
And you were also a scholar at the Australian Cricket Academy in 1989. How was that experience?
Yeah, pretty good actually. I mean, it was the second intake of the Cricket Academy in Adelaide at that stage. And at that stage, basically players that were close to playing Sheffield Shield cricket, first-class cricket, were sort of put into that situation. So I played with Michael Bevan and Michael Slater and Darren Berry, who also played there. Shane Warne was there as well. So we had a lot of cricketers that basically ended up to go on and play for Australia. So at that stage, it was sort of like if you played for the Australian under-19s, which I did, you were sort of then thrust into the Cricket Academy.
Did you see yourself as an all-rounder? Who was your hero growing up?
Well, I always loved batting. I mean, I batted number 5 at school at first 11 cricket, and I was always an opening bowler. So I was always keen to bat. I never wanted to just go out there and just bowl. So I've always classified myself as an all-rounder. Look, I suppose in those days, growing up in the 80s, it was all about Imran Khan. It was always about Kapil Dev, definitely Ian Botham, Richard Hadley. And so you'd always grow up with all-rounders like that, in Australia and world cricket. They were always big influences in my cricket, and probably along the lines of Dennis Lillee. I mean, I grew up in Western Australia, so I saw a lot of Dennis Lillee. So I had that potential to sort of be around those great players anyway.
And within about 2 years of playing for Western Australia, you are in the Australian team to go to the Ashes, alongside with a clutch of youngsters, Michael Slater, Matthew Hayden, Wayne Holdsworth, and there you were as part of that Australian team to England for the Ashes. How was that moment when you got to know that you got selected for the Ashes?
Well, for me, I was only 22. It was 1993. It was an Ashes tour to England. And at that stage, they came off winning the 1989 Ashes series in England. So this team that went over this time was probably a younger team, no doubt about that. As you say, there were 5 or 6 players that were going over for the first time. Shane Warne was touring England for the first time. He'd only been in Test cricket a couple of years. And I ended up playing my first Test match along with Michael Slater at Old Trafford in the first Test in '93. So we had a lot of young players, a lot of good young players as well, but we had a mixture of experienced players: Steve Waugh, Mark Taylor, David Boone, Tim May, Craig McDermott. So we had and Merv Hughes. So we had a big sort of a gap between the youngsters and also the older players that were experienced and could bring you on. But for me, that was basically the first time I met Alan Border. I hadn't met him before. So to go on that tour and him being the captain was, he was one player that I always looked up to as a youngster. So for me, it was just great being on the tour, let alone thinking I was going to play a Test match.
And you got a chance to play in the Test match. And there's an incident, there's a incident you recounted many years later about how you got to know that you're going to play in the Test match. You were standing with Tim May. Can you recount that moment when Alan Border told you that you're going to be playing the Test match?
Well, what happened on day 1 of the Test match, the first Test match at Old Trafford, we were always going to play 2 spinners. It was going to be Shane Warne and Tim May. It was going to be Craig McDermott and Merv Hughes. That was our bowling lineup. But on the morning of the game, We picked 12. I was in the 12. We hadn't decided because it was rain around, and they wanted to wait and see. They thought if the wicket was it was going to be wet, we probably shouldn't play two spinners, even though we had Steve Waugh and Mark Waugh as the all-rounders. But it basically got down to about 20 minutes before the start of play because I think it was delayed a little bit because of rain, and Alan Border had not decided who was going to be 12th man. Bobby Simpson was the coach and he was the chief selector as well. But I was sitting with Tim May and he basically said to me, "Oh, are you playing? Because I'm not playing. You must be playing." I said, "Look, no one's told me." So we basically thought we didn't know who was playing and they hadn't made a decision. And it was really about Alan Border putting on his coat as he walked out to the toss of the coin and didn't really know who to play in that game because it just started to sprinkle with a bit of rain. But he just looked at us and looked at me and he looked at Tim and he went, oh, BJ, my nickname. He said, "You play. Let's just play you. You play your first test." And that was it. You basically walked out, tossed the coin, and we won the toss and we were batting first. So it was relief, basically, that I had to wait, which was pretty good. But, there was no ceremony. There was no cap presentation. There was no big, moment. It was just like, you play, off you go. There you go, your first test.
Do you rib Alan Border anytime when you're in the commentary box about that moment? Do you still talk about it?
Many times. He doesn't remember. He can't remember that. I mean, he can only remember back about 10 years. But no, I remember that. I often bring it up when it comes up in commentary or it comes up, if we're talking about stuff on a cricket show or something like that. But he always laughs and he always says, "Oh, well, it was a tough decision because it was raining. We didn't know what to do."
You had the best seat, so to speak, of the ball of the century when Shane Warne got Mike getting out. What do you remember of that ball?
Well, not much. I mean, I was at mid-on and I remember Shane Warne warming up to me just before that delivery. And, he was classical Warnie where he didn't really think about much, sort of used it as a bit of a warm-up ball. And I was at mid-on, so I didn't really realise when it pitched and bounced and went outside the outside bat of Mike Gatting that it actually bowled him. It sort of, I couldn't quite see it mid-on, but obviously Ian Healy knew it bowled him and Mike Gatting didn't think about it. It was quite an amazing moment because you don't think it's the ball of the century. That's what happens after the game and they keep looking at it and all that sort of stuff. But it was really a big moment because Mike Gatting was a great player of spin bowling. And for Warnie to get him first ball that he bowled to him was quite a big moment. And the pitch really turned as well. So I think from that point of view, it gave you a sense that, this could be something special, that if he can get enough in the right area, he could get a bag of wickets. But, wonderful way to start it, wasn't it?
And in the third test match at Nottingham, you put in a special effort to save a test match with Steve Waugh, and you scored your first 50 in test cricket. There was a moment when you played a shot and Steve Waugh came up to you and said something. What was that?
Well, we were trying to save a test match. It was late in the day. We were past tea, so we only had about another hour and a half to bat. And I'd come down the wicket, hit I can't remember who the off spinner was for 6, and that brought up my 50. So I brought up my 50 with a 6 wide over mid-on. And Steve Waugh just came up to me and he said, "Look, great shot. Well done, 50. But I'm telling you, if you ever play that shot again, you'll be walking home. You probably will never play for Australia again if you get out. So make sure you don't do that again." And then you just walk back to the non-striker. And, I celebrated for about, 3 seconds. And then I just got back in my box and kept batting.
2 years later, you were one of the key bowlers for Mark Taylor when Australia won the Frank Worrell Trophy for the first time. And it was very interesting because you had been playing, you basically were playing in place of McDermott and Rifle. How big a moment was that?
Yeah, pretty big. I mean, I actually replaced Damien Fleming. Damien Fleming did his shoulder. So basically, I wasn't even in the touring squad. I just sort of basically flew from Perth, Western Australia, all the way to Guyana, played a tour game, and then basically when McDermott then injured his ankle in that tour game, he wasn't playing the tour game, but he was running back to the hotel and tripped over So I knew then I was playing the first Test match. The bowling was Paul Rifle, McGrath, myself, and Shane Warne. That was the four bowlers we had. But look, that was that was a great moment for me. I mean, I was lucky enough to get back into the team, lucky enough to play the first Test, and then basically I was lucky enough to get 4 wickets in that first innings. I got 3 before lunch, 3 early ones, and the West Indies are on the back foot. I mean, that it's hard to believe that was 25 years ago. I think it was the end of March, something like that. So we were thinking about that the other day. I was doing an interview about that tour, but quite remarkable though, to win over in the West Indies. West Indies had a pretty good side. Richard Richardson was the captain and Brian Lara was the standout. But, I think that was the making of Glenn McGrath as a bowler. I think that tour for him really thrust him up there with the start of a wonderful career.
You must have been thrilled that you didn't have more views on tour because he was your roommate on the 93 Ashes tour. How was he as a roommate for you? You must have been thrilled he was not there in West Indies in 95.
Merv was great. I mean, in 93, he looked after me. You're right, I was his roommate first, and that was something very, very different to experience. But he was great. He was a really good team man. He was a very good guy to have around the change room. He was great with helping out the younger players. Great with sort of coaching tips, with their bowling and stuff like that. Yeah, he wasn't in the West Indies '95, but Carl Rackerman was. And he was a great fold as well to help us out, the younger players as a young bowler. So yeah, we're very lucky. I was in 93 to have Merv and Craig McDermott, and then moving forward, I had Carl Rackerman in 95 as well, which helped a lot.
And then you had 2 consecutive years of tremendous performance for Western Australia, and you helped Western Australia win the titles back to back. 124 one year in 97, 98, and then you had 98, 99, you had 84 in the final. How big were those 2 years for you as a cricketer?
Oh, yeah, that was a big thing. I think those were the pinnacles of Sheffield Shield cricket. I don't think Sheffield Shield cricket is probably held in high regard as it was then. I mean, you knew that if you played well for your state and you were successful, you'd basically go on and play for Australia. So it was a great stepping stone. And they were 2, I had a lot of good times at Western Australia. The back-to-back championship was pretty good. And that was that time I was playing for Australia. One of the performances got me on the 99 World Cup squad as well. So that was always a great stepping stone. And I think that's when domestic cricket was really, really strong before the Big Bash had come along. It was your only stepping stone to play for Australia. So if you played well in state cricket and your state played well, it was a great way to be if you were trying to get into the Australian side.
And then being part of the 99 World Cup squad, you came back from behind. As a cricketer, would that be a pinnacle for you, having won that?
Yeah. Look, I think so. I mean, it was the last Australian tour I'd been on. But I think winning a World Cup is pretty magical. And I played a handful of games in that tournament. Playing in England was always very good as well. And I think that just the way we won that tour, at the start we weren't favourites and we didn't play well at the start. We got beaten by New Zealand in that tournament and we really struggled. And then basically it was every game was a sudden death game for us. And then, one of the best one-day games I watched, I didn't play, and it was the semi-final against South Africa. I mean, I think that was pretty amazing, that game of cricket. And then to win that or tie it in those circumstances and then go on to beat Pakistan was probably, one of my highlights of my career, no doubt about that. Winning a World Cup, not many people have done that.
You packed in an Ashes win, a first ever Frank Worrell Trophy win, and a World Cup win. And then you retired very early. Why was that? Why did you give it all up?
Well, I sort of knew then that I wasn't going to play for Australia again. I was getting on 29, 30. I probably had a few injuries. I probably could have kept playing, state cricket for another 2 or 3 years. But I just sort of knew that the time was right for me. If I thought that I could get out there and keep playing for Australia and represent Australia, I would have. I never wanted to be a player that was going to hang around in state cricket. And WA was going through a few changes as well, with a few players that had retired. And, you know, I just felt it was the right time. I mean, I didn't really have the passion to go on and keep playing state cricket, travelling a lot and all those sorts of things. So I just thought the timing was right.
And after that, you got into television. You hosted a television travel program called Getaway. How did that come about, and how was that experience?
Well, that came about. I was sort of doing a bit of TV work when I was playing cricket at the end of my cricket career in Perth. So Channel 9, I was doing some work for them in Perth, and they just sort of said, look, can you come and try out for a travel show? You know, this is what it's all about. This is what we do. I think you'd really like it. You know, and it's good fun. I mean, I travelled the world for 5 years and went to some exotic locations and did a lot of fun things. So, you know, it was a good change. It was a good change of scenery, and it was an opportunity that came up, and I grabbed it. So I just felt that, you know, I enjoyed doing the TV work. It wasn't something I'd planned to do, but the opportunity came up and I grabbed it with both hands, thinking, you know, that maybe I could then move it into cricket commentary, into television that way, which is exactly what I've done. So it's sort of worked out quite well.
And you host you have hosted Inside Cricket, you've done commentary. So you've not left your roots per se.
Yeah, that's been good. I mean, no doubt about it. I've been very lucky. I mean, I worked at Channel 9, and then Fox Sports really came into their own with domestic cricket and cricket rights in Australia. They basically started off with rugby league. That's what it was all about, Fox Sports in Australia, the pay TV arm. But then once we sort of started with domestic cricket, and when we started Big Bash cricket at Fox Sports, I mean, we bought the rights when no one really wanted it. We built it up, created a great product, and then Cricket Australia sold it to Channel 10 for about $100 million. So, you know, it's great to be part of the Big Bash right in the early days and getting it to where it is today. You know, it's gone on and become bigger and better, and now it's back on Fox Sports along with domestic cricket and international cricket and overseas cricket. So, you know, it's a great company to be in. I mean, I'm doing something that I love. I do something that basically lots of people would love to do as well. So, yeah, it's going pretty well at the moment.
But it's not just television hosting. You've also been an actor. You acted as a newscaster in a drama series called How's That Kerry Packer's War. How was that experience?
Look, that was very short. I wouldn't say it was acting. That was just something that was done pretty quickly. It took me about 5 minutes to do, so it wasn't exactly a career change. I'm quite happy to be involved with cricket commentary. But yeah, that was good fun. I mean, I never met Kerry Packer, but I knew the story, I knew the characters, I knew what it was all about. So for me, that was that was something special. It was a great series to watch as well. It was pretty well produced by Channel 9, and I think a lot of people had a lot of fun doing it. But it was, you know, it was a really good drama show to watch.
Anything else that you want to do and you haven't done so far in the future? Anything that you're mapped out?
Oh, not really. I mean, at this stage, I mean, I'm enjoying travelling, being around. I've enjoyed doing some of the IPL cricket as well. I'd like to do a lot more of that if the opportunity come up. I think I love coming to India and being involved in the IPL. I think it's just a wonderful tournament. I mean, to me, it's probably one of the biggest cricket tournaments in the world every year. It's like having an Olympics every year in India. And I think, you know, the level of cricket in the IPL competition is, I think, the best by far. I mean, it really outweighs the Big Bash, the crowds, the atmosphere, you know, just the way it goes about. So that's something I've really enjoyed. And, you know, I love travelling overseas and doing other cricket tours as well. So, yeah, at this stage, I'm pretty happy doing what I'm doing.
One place that you would recommend everybody to travel from your experience as a travel show host, one place that everybody should visit?
Oh, look, you know, it's really hard. I think skiing in Zermatt in Switzerland was pretty amazing. I mean, I don't know if a lot of people in India go skiing, but you know, I think if you've grown up in a summer sport like cricket, which is what I basically have done, and only started really skiing when I've had the opportunity to finish cricket. But I think for me, skiing in Zermatt, Switzerland, where you start in one country and end up in another country. You go through, I think, Austria, Italy, then you end up in Switzerland. I think that's something special as well. So that would be my tick.
And finally, one message from you on the whole COVID-19 situation, and what would you advise people to be active, how to be active, and what should they do in these troubled times?
Yeah, it's not easy, is it? I mean, we spend a lot more time at home, but I think one of the positives that will come out of this crisis is, one, you spend a lot more time with your family. Two, you get back to basics. So many times we're basically being consumers. We're short time frame, we're short attention span, and we basically want to get up and go and do things all the time. But now it's just a matter of staying home, spending a bit more time with your family, doing the jobs around the house, spending more time with your kids if you've got kids, or your partner. And I think just getting back to normal, very easy type of living rather than this complicated, fast-paced atmosphere that we find ourselves in. I think that's been one of the great things, to spend more time at home and basically just, really learn to accept the easy things and the basic things and the stuff that makes us happy, rather than getting caught up in the whole consumer globalization side of things. So that's one thing I've enjoyed. I've enjoyed just spending a bit of time at home. And yes, I know those things can be confined and tough, but I don't know, you read more books, you play a lot of games with your children and your family and your partners, and you just do some nice and relaxing stuff at home. So I think that's the positive in it. Yes, I don't want to do it forever, but I'd have to say in the last 4 weeks, that's been one of the highlights.
Thanks a lot, Brendan. It was really enjoyable chatting with you, and hope you stay safe, stay indoors. Thanks a lot for your time.
Pleasure, and I look forward to meeting you one day over there in Mumbai.
Will do, definitely. Thanks a lot.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Take care. Thanks a lot.